Good evening, all the joinees. Hi, this is Ansu. I welcome you all to the NGEN Markets webinar. By the time the others join in, let's have a look at today's webinar topic. So, today we would be focusing upon various ways how you could onboard clients onto the platform. Firstly, would be the RTA connection, which is our in house method of onboarding all your ARN or RIA registered clients onto the platform. Second, we would be looking upon manually onboarding client data onto the platform, which includes typing in or keying in the data of these clients in a manual way. After that, we would be looking upon how you could onboard any of your prospective client data onto the platform. For that, we have two options. First, being the statement analyzer, which helps you to onboard any CAS statements onto the platform. Followed by that, we have an Excel upload option, which is typically we call it as ISIN's upload option onto the platform. Once this uploading is done, which is typically multiple ways of onboarding these portfolios, we would be looking upon the performance parameter of a specific portfolio against its benchmark. Followed by that, we would be looking upon the contribution tab and the drawdown analysis. Contribution tab letting us know how each scheme in the portfolio is individually contributing to generate the entire portfolio return as a whole, followed by that being drawdowns, which lets you see that a portfolio, after it was falling from its NAV, how quickly did it recover from that loss or from that drawdown. Post which the quorum would be open for a Q&A session. You could either unmute yourselves or type down your questions in the chat box. So let us begin. So this is our NGEN Markets landing page, which happens to be the Markets tab. For today, our topic related webinar, I'll move towards the Clients tab, which is the third last tab. So in the client section, there are two methods how you could onboard client data onto the platform. First being the RTA connection, as I mentioned, is an option which is for all your existing clients. And second is manual data option. I'll start off with RTA connection tab. RTA connection lets you onboard all your ARN registered or RIA registered clients onto the platform. We also support multiple ARN onboarding onto the platform as well. And anytime you could have a consolidated view of these multiple ARNs as well. You could anytime also have a single ARN view as well. Now, how do we onboard client data onto the platform? Is we would set in certain filters and forwards on your registered mail ID, post which your client data, your ARN registered client data will start showing up onto this left hand side. Now, once we set in these filters, what are the files that we order from your mailback? That as well we have mentioned on the platform itself. So, in terms of files that we get in from your mailback are CAMS WBR4 files and CARVI MFSD 203 files. These are the files that we order from your mailback, and the data for each of your client is updated twice a week. Now, in terms of data, what does the platform show is current holdings only. So the platform will not capture transactions for each of these clients. For that matter, investment date or investment units, the platform will not capture. Basis these two files that come in, which are called as the current holding files. Basis these files, the platform will show you the current holdings of all your ARN registered client, and onto which you could run a portfolio analysis as well. Now, here, as I mentioned, that the data is updated twice a week, you could also view on what date was these or either of these two files have gotten updated that way. Now, this was the basic information about the RTA connection tab. Let's say we look upon the dashboard that comes up once you load any of the ARN, or let's say have a consolidated view for these ARN. The first thing that you could see is a summary report letting you see what is the total AUM under your ARN. Followed by that, the total number of clients that are coming under that respective ARN. Post which you could type in the number of clients. Let's say you wish to see the top 25 clients and what is their amount coming to. So here you see your top 25 clients have an AUM of 27 crore, which is equivalent to 50.6% of the entire AUM that you hold. Post which, we have also given an option called as client holdings search. Meaning, now let's say you quickly want to have a view which all clients have held onto a specific fund and to what extent. What you could do is anytime search in the name of that respective fund, and you would get in a list of all the clients under your ARN that are holding on to that respective fund. Let's say for now, maybe I type in Aditya Birla Flexi Cap Fund, right? So it shows you that there are a list of 96 clients that are holding on to this fund, and it comes up to be 3.5 crore approximately. You can click on that fund name and it gives you list suggesting that these are the clients, these are the client names that have this fund, Aditya Birla Flexi Cap Fund, in its portfolio. Now, there are three other columns as well that you could see too. Now, what does this mean is typically the first column called as AUM, straightforward letting you view what is the AUM for each of this client. Followed by that is this holding column, meaning out of this entire AUM, how much has been put into this fund, which is Aditya Birla Flexi Cap Fund. Currently, let's say if we look upon Shekhar Sharma, out of his total AUM of 1.42 crore, 24 lakh has been invested into Aditya Birla Flexi Cap Fund, which comes up to be 16.9% of his total fund holding or his total AUM that way. Post which, what you could see is the top 5 mutual fund exposures that is there under your ARN. You could anytime click on the name of that respective tile. Let's say top 5 here, you could see DSP small cap, right? Once I click on that bar graph, again, you see which all other clients that hold on to that respective funds. We show your top 5 mutual fund exposures that way. You simply do a click on that and it lets you see the clients that hold on to that respective fund. Followed by that, once you move further down, you'll be able to see the asset allocation that is there for the entire portfolio. Currently, it is suggesting that maximum allocation is to equity mutual funds, equity as an asset class. Followed by that, it is hybrid and debt funds. Next, you could see the total AMC exposure that is there towards this portfolio, currently suggesting that IPRU mutual fund has an highest exposure to this entire AUM. Followed by that is DSP mutual fund and HDFC mutual fund. And the last thing that you will be able to see onto this dashboard is the top 10 clients that form a part of your AR in that way. You could hover onto that specific bar graph and see what is the AUM of that respective client as well. Once we are familiar with this dashboard, now let's say we try to view how would the portfolio analysis be for each of your existing client that you have onboarded using the RTA connection. Let's say now I click on a name of a client, which is, let's say, Abhishek Sharma. You click on the client's name. As I mentioned, the platform will show you the current holdings of your existing clients. And that is exactly what you could see right here. So there are certain parameters that you could see onto this client dashboard. Once you click on the name of each of the client, this is the first page, or rather the first dashboard that comes across, letting you see what is the total AUM that is held by that specific client, what is the total holding that forms a part of that client. Next to that, you will be able to see the asset allocation split, meaning the split in terms of debt, equity, or hybrid funds. Followed by that, letting you see which SEBI classification or SEBI category is heavily or highly weighted in the entire portfolio. Followed by that, there are certain icons that you could see just below the details. First icon is an icon called as compare. Once you click on that, or rather do a left click, the entire components that form a part of the client's portfolio now moves to the compare tab, which typically helps you in like fund level analysis. You could add in any other fund, or for that matter, you could add in a benchmark and see how are these schemes individually performing against that of any of the benchmark. Followed by that, there are two copy icons that you could see. First is the option to copy the portfolio to the portfolios tab, which is the second last tab. And the second is an option to copy this portfolio to the manual data tab. The reason because we have given these two options is because since you are viewing your existing client's data for which the feed comes in from CAMS and Carvi, editing any of these portfolio is not possible in this clients tab RTA connection. However, you could anytime take these portfolios to the portfolios section just by clicking on this option, and there editing as an option would be available. You could search for that client, right? So this is what I had taken. So you could see it comes under the folder from client because I had transferred it from the client section to the portfolio section that way, wherein you could edit these portfolios as per your requirement as well. Followed by that, we have an Excel icon which helps you to download the holdings of this entire portfolio. Now, what would come up into the Excel is also mentioned right here. These parameters respective to the funds would come up into this Excel file. Now, these are the schemes that form a part of this Abhishek Khanna client's portfolio. And each of this fund, you could see the respective units that are there in his portfolio, and basis these units, what are their values equivalent to their percentage as well is something that you could see right here. And this exactly all these columns would come up into this Excel file that way. And once you click on run analytics, it would take you to a detailed portfolio analysis that way. So this is the first method of onboarding all your ARN registered or RIA registered clients onto the platform, which happens in the clients tab, RTA connection. Next, within the clients tab, what we have is also a manual data tab. Now, this is a section where again, you will be able to see a dashboard, and here you would be required to create portfolios in the traditional format, meaning keying in the details of your client, details about the fund, or for that matter, a stock the client is holding. So all you need to do is would be select this option called as add single client, and there is this option called as add manually. Once you click on that, you simply give it a name. Click on add condition. These are the details. If you require, you could input, or this could be left blank as well. Followed by that, as I mentioned, here are the options to either search for a fund or search for a stock as well. So let's say I add in few funds that way. Maybe I'll add in HDFC Flexi Cap. Next, I'll add in ICICI Equity Saving. And let's say I add in two stocks, maybe Tata Steel and let's say a Wipro, right? Once you add in all these funds or all these stocks, here there are two columns that you could see. First is the last price, and next to that, you could see as on what date the last price or the last NAV has been mentioned right here. Next to that, there are two more columns that you could see. First is mentioned as units or shares, and second has been mentioned as current value. So here you need to input either of these two details. The other column will get automatically captured. Let's say, for example, for HDFC Flexi Cap, I'll input a unit of 1000 and then I'll click outside the box. So you see the current value has gotten captured automatically. And in a similar way, if you input an amount, the units would get captured automatically. So let's say I'll also fill these remaining stock details as well. Once all these details have been input, all you need to do would be click on done. And the entire dashboard that we had seen for a single client in the RTA connection tab will also show up in the manual data tab. All you need to do for a portfolio analysis would be just clicking on run analytics to go forward with a detailed portfolio analysis that way. So these were our two methods of onboarding client data onto the platform in the clients tab. Next method happens to be in the Portfolios tab. Now, as I mentioned, you also have an option to onboard prospective client data onto the platform. For that, the first option or the first method is Statement Analyzer. So this is something that you could find just on top, called as Launch Tools. So the second tab is Statement Analyzer. You simply do a left click, and here you could upload in ECAS statements, consolidated account statements, either from NSDL, CDSL, or CAMS. And these need to be in PDF format only. And you would be required to upload the original file, which also has the password, which typically would be the PAN number that we. All you need to do is click on choose file, select your file. Let's say I select this test file. I give it a password and you click on check file. So you would get in a prompt that this is a recognized file type and the file type would also reflect. Then there is an option to give it a label, which is typically optional. If you wish to put in, you can. If not, you could simply click on process and save file. Once you click on this option, within 30 seconds, it will show up onto this right-hand side section, right? And here, as I mentioned, cash statement is what you could upload. The platform can capture both mutual funds as well as stocks. So let's say I just look upon this portfolio of Smith Agarwal, which has a combination of mutual funds and stocks. If you simply or quickly want to have a view of this report, you could click on this pad-like icon. And as I mentioned, the platform will capture both mutual funds as well as stocks through any of the ECAS that you would have uploaded. Now, this happens to be the first step of onboarding the cash statement. The second step involves, again, going back to NGEN Markets. Within the Portfolios tab, just on top, you would be able to see a plus icon. All you need to do is do a left click to this and you see an option called as Load Statement Analyzer. Once you click this, all the cash statement that you would have uploaded would come up right here. Just a minute. Yeah. So
Sis, can you just repeat this last thing once again, please, for us?
Yes. So in case of there are any questions or queries, we could take up at the very end. We would just
Okay.
finish off with the webinar topic. We could address your questions at
No,
the very
no, the tab that you just clicked, that's it. From where you have got this load statement analyzer, just that option.
yeah. Yeah. So you
Hello, ma'am. This is Prajakta. We've just clicked on statement analyzer as an option, and as mentioned, can we please take all the questions towards the end? Let us not break a flow, please.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So I would just repeat what you were asking. You all you need to do is click on Statement Analyzer. This page would open up. Simply select your file, put in your file, put in your password, and click on Check File. Once that is done, the option will come up as Process and Save File. And within 30 seconds, it would show up onto this right-hand side. So this, as I mentioned, is the first step of onboarding a cash statement. The second step, you go back to the main page and you select this second last tab, which is Portfolios tab. And then there is a plus option called as Add a New Portfolio. Simply do a left click to that, and then you could see an option called as Load Statement Analyzer. Once you click on that, any or all the cash statements that you would have uploaded would come up right here. All you need to do would be click on this plus icon. Right? So as I mentioned, the platform would capture both stocks as well as mutual funds. So we have different identifier for both. The graph-like icon is an identifier for stocks and the bag-like icon is an identifier for mutual funds. Once this has been taken up into this section, you give it a name. By default, it will pick up a name which forms a part of the cash statement. If not, you could edit it as per your requirement as well. And then you could also select a folder into which you wish to save this file. I'm just selecting active, which comes in by default. Post which there are two columns or two sections that you could see, which is called as create as well as run. So once you click on create, your portfolio gets saved onto your login, meaning the next time you log onto the platform, all you need to do would be go to the portfolio section and hit on run. Whereas currently, if you just click on run, You could anytime go forward with the portfolio analysis. However, this portfolio will not get saved onto your login. So you would have to do the entire process all over again. So it would be preferable if you click on create to ensure that the portfolio gets saved onto your login. So this was the first method of onboarding a prospective client onto the platform. Next, as I mentioned, the last method of onboarding, let's say a prospect, is through an Excel. Let's say this prospect has not shared a cash statement with you. All this client has shared is maybe an Excel sheet which has the ISIN numbers of the fund and maybe the respective percentage or the amount. So, how do you onboard those clients? Again, the feature is available in the portfolios tab, which is the second last tab. You click on this plus icon called as add a new portfolio. And then there is an option called as load ISINs from Excel. So in this gray section, there is requirement of two columns. First column would be the ISIN number, and the second column could be either percentage or amount or the number of units or shares. Either of these three could be the second column. The first column should always be the ISIN number. So for example, I have a portfolio of ISIN numbers and its respective weightages. So I would copy this data and I would paste it in the gray section. Right? Once that is done, you need to let the system know what has been taken in the second column. Click on this drop down and select what you have input in the second column. Currently, I had selected percentage, so I'll select percentage right here and I'll click on validate input. So basis the ISINs, if it was a stock or if it was a mutual fund, both would get automatically captured. Then you simply give it a name. And you click on create so that this gets saved onto your login. And then you could simply click on run to go forward with a detailed portfolio analysis. So the method of onboarding portfolios are different, be it in the client section or the portfolio section. However, the portfolio analysis that you view for either existing or a prospect remains exactly the same. What we are currently viewing, it would be exactly the same for both prospective client or an ARN, RTA connection client that way. Right now, once I have onboarded this portfolio, the first box would show you the components that form a part of this portfolio and their allocation in the portfolio. Next to that, you could see this option called as start and end date. Let's say you wish to analyze this portfolio, maybe for a specific custom time period, or let's say a 5-year or 3-year time period. All you need to do is click on change. If you wish to put in a custom date, you could click on this gray section and select a time period of your choice. If not, we have given in some custom scenarios. Let's say I analyze this portfolio maybe for 5 years. And the start date gets picked up automatically. Currently, 7th Jan 2020. Post which you could see benchmark has been taken up as reference index 2. Now, this is what we call as auto benchmarking that happens on the platform. Now, if you wish to see what components form a part of reference index 2, you could go to this engine in the benchmark section and click on this gray section, search reference indices. So reference index 2 is 90% Nifty TRI and 10% CCIL bond. And this auto benchmarking happens basis the asset allocation of the entire portfolio. So if you go to the asset allocation, you would be able to see the split in terms of equity and debt. Basis this split, the platform would suggest a reference index out of these 11 indices. You could either go forward with them. If not, let's say you wish to benchmark it against maybe a broad-based index from maybe let's say NSE or BSE for that matter. You could anytime do that. Post which you could see the performance statistics, the performance comparison of your portfolio against this benchmark. Currently, I haven't changed the auto benchmark that has happened. I have selected reference index 2 as the benchmark for this portfolio. So when we talk about performance of this portfolio against the benchmark, you could view data in graphical format as well as in statistical format too. So in this graphical format, the blue line shows the performance of the portfolio and the black line shows the performance of the benchmark, which is reference index 2, currently suggesting that in this time period of 5 years that we are analyzing, my portfolio has indeed outperformed my benchmark. If you wish to view the statistics, you could come towards the right hand side, wherein parameters like cumulative return, meaning the absolute point to point return, is higher for this portfolio at 196% when compared to that of the benchmark, which is at 102%. Followed by that, if you wish to see the CAGR annually basis, what is the growth rate for this portfolio, you could come to the CAGR section, which again says that the portfolio has a higher CAGR in consideration or when compared to that of the benchmark. Now, yes, the portfolio is generating returns, but then what is the risk that is associated with both the portfolio as well as the benchmark? You could come to this annual volatility, which is typically the standard deviation. The risk associated, you could see the risk is 15% for the portfolio, while for the benchmark, it is to an extent of 16.8. Meaning, in terms of its volatility, there is not much difference. However, we could see that there is a greater difference in terms of its return generation capacity that way. So you could say that the portfolio generated a higher return even though its volatility was similar to that of that benchmark or near to that of the benchmark. And we could view that in terms of its Sharpe ratio, which is typically the risk adjusted return, which being higher for the portfolio is at 1.05 in consideration to the benchmark, which is at 0.51. Followed by that, once we scroll down, we come across statistics like up capture ratio and down capture ratio. So up capture ratio lets us see how has the portfolio performed when the benchmark was in a bull run. Now you could see a ratio of or figure of 112. Now how did we arrive at this? We have also given an explanation for the same once you click on this I button. So here, while calculating up capture ratio, we consider only those months when the benchmark has generated a positive return, irrespective whether the fund has generated a positive or a negative return. So the greater importance or consideration is given to the benchmark return, and whatever was the return that was generated by the portfolio would also be captured right here. Once all these data are captured on a month-on-month basis, we take a CAGR of this data set for both the portfolio as well as for the benchmark. So here you see it says that when the benchmark was moving up by 53%, the portfolio moved up by 59%, meaning an outperformance is what you could see. And how did we arrive at this 112? Is typically the division of 59.8 with that of 53.1. Simple division, and we say higher the up capture ratio, better is the performance of the portfolio when the benchmark is in a bull run. And by higher, we say it should be more than 100 because we consider the benchmark to be at 100. And similarly, converse is the down capture ratio, which lets you see how has the portfolio performed when the benchmark was in a bear run. Now here as well, we would consider only those months when the benchmark has generated a negative return, irrespective whether the portfolio generated a positive or a negative return. For example, in the month of April 2021, my benchmark gave in a negative return of minus 0.07. However, the portfolio gave in a positive return of 1.17%. Here as well, once we consider all these months, we take a CAGR of these data set, which comes up to be negative 33.6 for the benchmark and negative 25 for that of the portfolio. Now, again, what does this data say is when our benchmark was falling down by negative 33.6%, my portfolio fell down only by negative 25%. So suggesting that we could see some amount of resilience by this portfolio against the movement of the benchmark when the benchmark was in a bear run. And here as well, how do we arrive at this down capture ratio is simple division of this portfolio return with that of the benchmark return. And then we say that down capture ratio, the lower the better, meaning less than 100, the better it is, which would suggest greater resilience by the portfolio against the benchmark when the benchmark is in a bear run that way. Followed by that, once you scroll down, you could view monthly statistics as well as yearly statistics too. So here you could see something mentioned as 61, which is called as number, meaning in this time period of 5 years that we are analyzing, there has been a total of 61 months, out of which 45 months this portfolio gave in an up performance and 16 months this portfolio gave in a down performance, which comes up to be 73% of times the portfolio giving an up performance out of 100 and 26% of times giving an down performance out of 100. In that given time period, or in this time period of 5 years, which month gave in the best returns has also been mentioned, which comes up to be 11.1 percentage. You could anytime hover onto this line graph and view that specific month. So in the month of April 2020, this portfolio gave in the best performance, as well as the worst performing month, which is negative 24 percentage the previous month. You could see March 2020, the portfolio gave in the worst return, which was negative 24 percentage. After the performance tab, we would move forward with the contribution tab. Now, this tab lets us see how each scheme in the portfolio is individually contributing to generate portfolio return as a whole. So, for example, let's say I look upon Nippon Large Cap Fund. The data that you view right here are 3 columns. First column would highlight what are the schemes that form a part of this portfolio, right? Next to that is the column called as total return, which would give out the individual return that would be generated by each of this fund. Let's say we look upon Motilal Oswal Mid Cap Fund. For this fund, its individual absolute return is 305% in this time period of 5 years that we are analyzing. Now, basis Motilal Oswal's allocation in my portfolio. So you could see Motilal Oswal is allocated to an extent of 13%. Basis this allocation, its contribution to the entire portfolio return comes up to be 19.37%, which is of course when you base it to 100% that way. Now, let's say maybe I look upon some other fund, for example, Nippon Large Cap Fund. Its individual return in the time period of 5 years, meaning absolute return, comes up to be 141%. Now, basis this fund's allocation in my portfolio, you see Nippon Large Cap's allocation is to an extent of 12.2%, which is the second best allocation in the portfolio. However, it is not able to generate a very good return, and basis that it is able to contribute to the entire portfolio return only to an extent of 8.4%. So in such way, the contribution tab could help you in taking decision. Let's say there is this scheme generating very least amount of individual return. You could maybe try to reduce its allocation in the portfolio and see how the entire portfolio return could be affected by that. And within the contribution tab, we also have given an option to create an internal scenario as well. Meaning, without changing the entire portfolio start and end date, you could create an internal scenarios within this contribution tab. Let's say I select the year to date 2024 scenario right here. So I've put in 1st Jan 2024 till 31st December 2024 and I click on run. Right? So even if we see in this time period of a 2024 month to date year, we see Nippon India Large Cap is not able to contribute to that extent how much other funds were. However, this fund has a higher allocation in this portfolio, which in turn is not able to generate or contribute to the entire portfolio return that way. Followed by that, we move towards the last topic for this webinar, which happens to be the drawdowns tab. Now, drawdowns on a portfolio level lets you see how is the portfolio recovering from any loss that has happened in the past. Now, you see that there is a portfolio level NAV. Now, how did we arrive at this portfolio level NAV this is the weighted average NAV, meaning the NAV of each fund would be multiplied with its weightage in the portfolio, and that is how we arrive at this weighted average portfolio NAV. Now, on a portfolio level, you would be able to see top 10 drawdowns or top 10 losses, wherein the highest loss for this portfolio was to an extent of 32%, wherein this NAV was at 104.14 and this portfolio NAV started falling and it reached a level or price of 69.8. Now, when did this happen? It happened between 24th Jan 2020 till 23rd March 2020. This is a time period when its NAV was rather falling. And post this end date of 23rd March 2020, it took a total of 167 days for this portfolio to recover, meaning 167 days to cross this start price of 104.14. Only then you could say that this portfolio has completely recovered from this loss of 32.96%. And when did the recovery happen? That also you could view right here. The fund recovered from its loss, the portfolio recovered from its loss of 32% on 11th November 2020. You could anytime view this NAV also on this portfolio level NAV. So this is a graph for the portfolio movement. The white region would show the recovery phase and the gray region would show the drawdown phase. Now let's maybe try to locate this 11th November 2020. Yeah. So right here, I've kept my cursor on 11th November 2020. You could see the NAV on this date is 104.43, which is higher than our start price of this loss. So that is the reason we have considered 11th November 2020 as the recovery date, because on this date, the portfolio was able to cross this start price of loss that had occurred. So this was the topic related webinar. If anyone has any query, you could either unmute yourself or type down your questions in the chat box.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just missed the part that how can we upload anyone's CAS?
All right, sure. So typically, if you check, we have a tool called Statement Analyzer that is mentioned right there at the top, right? You click on that tool, it gets open in a new tab. On the left hand side, you will see a choose file option. You can use that option to upload a NSDL, CDSL, or CAMS and CARVI ECAS statement of any of your clients. Please note the file has to be an original file which has not been modified to save without the password, right? So it has to be a password protected original file. Once you choose a file, you put in the file password right at the top and then click on check file. Once you do that, the file will be read, and then when you click on process and save, it will get saved and appear on the right hand side panel. This is how you load a ECAS file.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I have one question.
Yes, please go ahead.
So we have clients monthly cash, okay, who are not our regular clients, just the prospect clients of matter.
Okay.
So can we just re-upload in the same client format, let's say, or we just how we will go about it? Because we get the cash every month, so it will be treated as a new client every time.
Yeah, so typically for all the new or other updated months CAS, you can just go on adding that as a new ECAS file, and then you could choose to delete the older file by clicking on the delete bin that you
Okay.
can see on the right hand side. Yeah.
But whatever when you were explaining the exercise, you
Yes.
said that we can save the data. Like we have to choose the option create to
Yes.
work on the existing portfolio.
Correct.
But if
So
it is
this is,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, sure. So
yeah,
this is how you onboard a ECAS, right? Now,
right?
to read that or rather to analyze that portfolio, that is a separate procedure. Once you've uploaded the ECAS, you go back to the original tab, that is where
Okay.
you see all the sub tabs of the Engine Markets platform. And
Okay.
then by clicking on the portfolio section plus icon, you can see this is load statement analyzer option. So this is where you will choose that ECAS which you want to save or rather run analytics on, right? So that will definitely get saved when you click on create, right?
Okay.
Irrespective whether you have that ECAS file
No, no,
on
I'm
the statement
saying
analyzer
that
or not.
I have put on some filters,
Yeah.
for example, and every time it will be like a new client, right?
Yeah. So filters meaning,
No, no, I get it now. Don't
yeah,
worry. I will just re-upload the cache every month.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so there's a question in the chat box. This week's webinar recording, as is the case for all the previous week, we upload the webinar recordings on our YouTube channel by next week. So you can access all the webinar recordings by clicking on the YouTube channel link. And there's a separate dedicated playlist that is created for the webinar uh, recordings. Yeah. So that is where you can access this recording from, because it will get uploaded by mid of next week. So the question asking for the pricing of the platform. So thank you for your inquiry. We will get our business head to have a word with you. Could you please drop in your contact number on the chat box so that this process is kind of quicker? This is for Mr. Vibhuti, Mr. Vibhuti. Okay, so there's another question asking to explain essential difference between premium and pro. So the pro version, which was a which was a new upgrade that we did, and was made available for subscription for all of our premium users. is packed with three essential features. Of course, there are detailed videos explaining all of these features separately on YouTube channel. But just to give a short summary, the three modules that are covered in the Pro version are strategy templates, goal-based financial planning, and a client risk profiler, right? These three modules will be included in the Pro version only and not in the premium version, right? So typically strategy templates are 100% automated portfolios that could be viewed on the platform. You can do multiple things from it. You can run a detailed analysis. You can take the components of those portfolios directly to the compare section for further analysis, or you can even modify the components of that portfolio and make a customized portfolio of your own, which could be like a strategy, right? Next is a goal-based financial planning, which helps you in kind of projecting different possibilities basis a target amount, initial lump sum, and monthly step up, incorporating two factors: expected rate of return and assumed volatility, right? So we do this using established mathematical models, Monte Carlo simulation, binomial tree model, and geometric Brownian motion. And of course, PDF, PPT reports, PDF and Excel reports can be taken from these projections, right? And the risk profiler predominantly is a set of 5 questions, the responses to which will lead into a score between 2 and 10, which typically tells you the risk appetite, or for that matter, the risk tolerance of your clients. Again, these can be generated into a PDF report and shared across to the client. Right? So this is what the Pro version essentially is. All right, so there's another question asking for fees to upgrade from premium to pro. So this is a pro rata pricing. Pro as such, if you consider in isolation, will cost 25,000 plus GST to access these three modules. However, based upon your present days of expiry, right, you will get an option in your settings tab to view a pro rata quote to upgrade to the pro version for the balance number of days left of your premium login. And let's say the days left are 50, right? Accordingly, if you then click on settings and pay the pro rata price, you will then be able to access premium plus pro, that is all the features of the pro version for the balance 50 days of your existing login. So that is how it works. But in isolation, it will cost 25,000 plus GST. So to view what is your personalized quote for the Pro upgrade, you simply need to click on the settings tab right there. Then there is subscription and users. That's the first tab. There you'll get a Get Pro green button. When you click on it, it will kind of show you a yeah. So there's another question in the chat box. Risk profiling is not available in the premium version. Risk profiling, strategy templates, and goal-based financial planning is exclusively, or rather, are exclusively the features of the NGEN Pro version, which comes at a separate price. There's another question on the chat box. So there's no expiry for the videos that we upload on the YouTube channel. You can, rather they have been around for almost 2 years now. So you can, of course, keep on viewing them as many times as you would wish to. Newer videos, of course, will keep on getting added, right? So it is a pretty latest or updated list that way. There's no expiry as such. Okay, there's another question which says how, or rather, after we upload a CAS, how do you run analytics of the portfolio? So once you've uploaded the ECAS, as was previously mentioned in the webinar, you simply go to the portfolio section. You click on the plus icon that you can see on the top left-hand side. Then there is an option called Load Statement Analyzer. You click on that. You choose the ECAS that you wish to run analytics on by clicking on the plus icon there. Then you scroll down. The name of the client will automatically get populated. Then you click on Create in order to save this portfolio, and then click on Run. That is how you can run a detailed portfolio analytics after uploading the CAS. Any further questions, please let us know. Okay, so as I've mentioned previously as well, the Pro version costs 25,000 plus GST in isolation, right? That's the cost of the Pro version. Um, However, this is a pro rata pricing, right? So based upon the number of days left of your existing premium login, you will get a quote inside of your Engine Markets login itself, right? If you wish to have more clarity on this, we can get you in touch with our business head. He'll be able to help you with this, or you could just drop in your contact number so that we can reach out to you just after we close this webinar session. There's no limitation on the number of clients that you can typically add for creating risk profiler, or for that matter, even analyzing client portfolios, meaning the RTA connections, or for that matter, portfolio analytics. There's no limitation. All right, then if there are no more questions, Ansu, we can close for today.
Yes. So, thank you all for joining in for today's webinar. You could anytime visit our YouTube page. We have a dedicated playlist for all the webinars that have been conducted up until now. A total of 143 webinars have been uploaded, and today's webinar will also get uploaded by next week. Thank you all. Hope to see you again next week with a new topic.